Did God really write the Ten Commandments himself? It is written in Exodus 31 verse 18. And when he had made an end of speaking with him on Mount Sinai, he gave Moses 2 tablets of the testimony, tablets of stone, written with the finger of God. And in Exodus 32 verse 16. Now the tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God engraved on the tablets. The answer, yes. The God of heaven wrote the 10 Commandments on tables of stone with his own finger. The 10 Commandments were written by God on 2 blue sapphire stones, which means they come directly from God's throne in heaven and will not change. Others called it the law of Moses, but it was God's law. Friend, do you want to submit to God and obey his commandments?
Why did God give us the 10 Commandments? As it is written in Proverbs 29, verse 18, happy is he who keeps the law. And in Proverbs 3, verses 1 and 2, keep my commands, for length of days, long life, and peace they will add to you. First reason, as a guide for happy, abundant living. God created us to experience happiness, peace, long life, contentment, accomplishment, and all the other great blessings. Second, to show us the difference between right and wrong. Third, to protect us from danger and tragedy. Finally, it helps us know God.
Are God's law and Moses' law the same? The answer is no. They are not the same. Let us study the following contrasts. Moses' law contained the temporary, ceremonial law of the Old Testament. It regulated the priesthood, sacrifices, rituals, meat and drink offerings, etc., all of which foreshadowed the cross. This law was added till the seed should come, and that seed was Christ, explained in Galatians 3 verses 16 and 19. The ceremonies and rituals of Moses' law pointed toward Christ's offering. But according to Psalm 111 verse 8, when he died, this law came to an end, but the 10 Commandments stand fast forever and ever. Daniel 9 verse 10 and 11 make it plain that there are 2 laws. Remember that God's law has existed for at least as long as sin has. According to the Bible, there is no transgression or sin where there is no law. Read verse 15 of Romans 4. So God's 10 Commandments law existed from the beginning. 2 separate laws are involved, God's law and Moses' law.
Did Jesus abolish God's law while he was here on earth? As it is written in Matthew 5 verses 17 and 18. Do not think that I came to destroy the law. I did not come to destroy but to fulfill. Till heaven and earth pass away, one jot or one tittle will by no means pass from the law till all is fulfilled. The answer is certainly no, indeed. Jesus specifically asserted that he did not come to destroy the law, but to fulfill or keep it. Instead of doing away with the law, Jesus magnified it. As we read in Isaiah 42, verse 21, it pleased the Lord for the sake of his righteousness to make his law great and glorious. Therefore, it is a perfect guide for holy living. For example, Jesus pointed out that, you shall not murder, condemns anger without a cause in Matthew 5 verses 21 and 22, and hatred written in 1 John 3 verse 15, and that lust is a form of adultery noted in Matthew 5 verses 27 and 28. Jesus said, if you love me, keep my commandments as written in John 14 verse 15. Will those who consciously keep disobeying God's laws be saved? As it is written in Romans 6 verse 23, for the wages of sin is death. In Isaiah 13 verse 9, he will destroy the sinners. And in James 2 verse 10, whoever shall keep the whole law, and yet stumble in one point, he is guilty of all. The law of the 10 Commandments directs us toward a holy life. If we break even one of the commandments, we fail to complete a crucial piece of the divine plan. A chain's entire function is defeated if even one link is broken. According to James 4, verse 17 of the Bible, we sin when we deliberately disobey one of God's commands because we have rejected his desire for us. The kingdom of heaven is only open to those who submit to his will. Of course, God will pardon anybody who truly repents and believes in the transformational power of Christ.
Can the observance of the law save anyone? According to Romans 3, verse 20, by the deeds of the law no flesh will be justified in his sight. And in Ephesians 2, verses 8 and 9, by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast. The answer is too plain to miss. No one can be saved by keeping the law. Salvation comes only through grace, as a free gift of Jesus Christ, and we receive this gift by faith, not by our works. So why, then, is the law essential for improving a Christian's character? The we read is Ecclesiastes 12, verses 13. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind, and in Romans 3, verse 20, by the law is the knowledge of sin. It is because the full pattern, or whole duty, for Christian living is contained in God's law. Many think that doing good works guarantees their salvation even if they ignore keeping the law.
What makes it possible for an authentically converted Christian to uphold the pattern of God's law? As it is written in Hebrew 8, verse 10, I will put my laws in their minds and write them on their hearts. And in Philippians 4, verse 13, I can do all things through Christ. Also in Romans 8, verses 3 and 4, God did it by sending his own Son, that the righteous requirement of the law might be fulfilled in us. Christ not only pardons repentant sinners, he also restores in them the image of God. He brings them into harmony with his law through the power of his indwelling presence. Thou shalt not becomes a positive promise that the Christian will not steal, lie, murder, etc., because Jesus lives within us and is in control. God will not change his moral law, but he made a provision through Jesus to change the sinner so we can measure up to that law.
Can the law of God ever be changed or abolished? Luke chapter 16 verse 17 mentions it. It is simpler for heaven and earth to vanish than for even one jot of the law to be broken. And in verse 34 of Psalm 89, I won't violate my commitment to my covenant or change what I've said. Psalm 111, verses 7 and 8. His commandments are all certain. They remain firm for all time. So, no, is the correct response. The Bible makes it abundantly plain that God's law is unalterable. The principles of God's holiness are revealed in his commandments, which are also the cornerstone of his heavenly kingdom. As long as God continues to exist, they will be true. The Ten Commandments is essentially God's nature in written form, written so that we might better understand God. Since God and his law have exactly the same qualities, this proves that God and his law are one and the same.
How does the devil feel about people who pattern their lives after God's 10 Commandments? It is written in Revelation 12, verse 17, the dragon, the devil, was enraged with the woman, the true church, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of God. And according to Revelation 14, verse 12, here is the patience of the saints, here are those who keep the commandments of God. The devil hates those who uphold God's law because the law is a pattern of right living, so it is not surprising that he bitterly opposes all who uphold God's law. In his war against God's holy standard, he goes so far as to use religious leaders to deny the 10 Commandments while at the same time upholding the traditions of men. No wonder Jesus said, why do you also transgress the commandment of God because of your tradition? In vain they worship me, teaching his doctrines the commandments of men, as written in Matthew 15, verses 3 and 9. And David said, it is time for you to act, O Lord, for they have regarded your law as void, and Psalm 119, verse 126. Christians must wake up and restore God's law to its rightful place in their hearts and lives. Since sin is lawlessness, as stated in 1 John 3 verse 4, let's examine this question. Why give the law any thought? Conscience is a good ruler, isn't it? No. None of the terms used in the Bible, evil conscience, contaminated conscience, and scorched conscience, are safe. According to Proverbs 14 verse 12, there is a way that seems right to a man, but it leads only to death. According to God, he who trusts in his own heart is a fool, Proverbs 28 verse 26. Doesn't it make sense that everyone should follow the law in order to maintain peace and safety when crime and violence ravage our towns and homes? God, however, left his own law written in stone centuries ago, and according to the Bible, we are still required to uphold it now. Any portion of God's law that is broken always has negative repercussions. Most importantly, though, God's law preserves our security and tranquility.